What's up, guys? It's me again, Christian Rodriguez. How are you guys doing? So, today I'm going to talk about my takeaways from reading Atomic Habits. Well, I've listened to the audiobook like 3, 4 times, and it's a pretty good read. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it. And a quote that really resonates with me, right, when reading this book is you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, right? And that is so freaking true, right? In both business, but also in your personal life, right? You need some sort of systems in place, right? To get what you want to have, right? Because systems allows you to get stuff done even when motivation's out the window. Motivation, energy, that stuff is going to be gone. There's going to be days you're going to be inspired, you're going to be ready, you're going to be jumping out of bed ready to go, get the day, and then there's going to be days you're going to be dreading the day, right? So systems allows you to keep the momentum going regardless of what happens, right? And I'm going to get more into the systems part later on. So just keep up till the end of the video. So but in a little example of a system, right, is so every time I wake up, I have a cup with my pack of creatine right next to the cup, right? And the spoons inside the cup, right? So I wake up, I brush my teeth, I use the bathroom, I come back and I drink creatine with water. So I take that right away and I meditate for 15 minutes. That's a system I have, right? So I just associate with doing that first thing in the morning. Those two actions, which is taking my creatine and meditating, right? So then another takeaway I got from the book is that you need to make some sort of you need to have an identity with your habits, right? You need to have some sort of identity shift. That's how I should say it. Identity shift, right? In favor of your habits. So instead of I'm trying to go to the gym, you say I'm becoming a fit person. Instead of saying I'm trying to quit smoking cigarettes, you say I don't smoke anymore, right? Instead of saying I'm trying to eat healthy, you say I only eat good food. I don't eat shit food anymore, right? Like it isn't it's very subtle. It doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but it has a psychological effect, right? And it associates you with that identity, right? And that's the thing. When you associate yourself with that identity, you're more likely to want to stay consistent with that identity, right? It's funny because a lot of these books overlap with each other. I'm already thinking of another principle from another book that sounds similar to this. But that's the thing. I noticed my French tutor do this to me. She actually, so it was like my like I think it was my first session, right? I was still I I I I was studying French, but I wasn't able to speak. I wasn't able to speak French. Like I knew some words, I recognized some words, I knew some basic stuff, but I wasn't able to actually speak, right? So I had a tutor the first session. It was a struggle, right? Like the speaking part of it. And you know what she made me do? She made me like write and then read what I wrote, right? Or she would have like text on the screen and she would have me read the text in French, right? And one of the texts like asks like what languages do you speak? And I would type I speak English and Spanish, right? And then she would edit the text and she would put um oh yeah, I put I speak English, Spanish and learning French. And then she would put I speak and then she would edit it and she would have me read it out loud and it would say I speak English, I speak Spanish, and I speak a little French, right? And I would repeat it in French, right? So it would be je parle anglais, espagnol et un peu français, right? And it doesn't seem like much, but even that little action right there, right? it made me identify as a French speaker, not just not just an English. I mean, not just a French learner, right? There's a difference being a French learner, a guy who's just on Duolingo, studying, learning bonjour, and then someone who actually is speaking French, a French speaker. So I started identifying with that, right? And it's the same thing with being an entrepreneur, right? I'll say that I'm an entrepreneur, right? I identify with being an entrepreneur instead of I'm trying to become an entrepreneur, right? And those little things will really make you take it more seriously. It's very subtle, but James Clear really talks about making that identity shift towards that habit, right? That really stuck out to me. But another takeaway I got, right? Another one that I was already implementing, but I started taking it more seriously after I read this book, right? And he talks about tracking your habits, right? And it sounds monotonous, right? Like tracking your habits. It doesn't sound like all that fun. It's like, oh, tracking my habits. I don't really want to do that. But this is the thing, right? He talks about, so when I started tracking my habits, right? I thought it was monotonous. I took the time. I set up like who I wanted to become, what type of goals I had, what type of things do I need to work on, right? I started tracking my workouts, like days I would work out. I would just track, oh, okay, I worked out that day, worked out this day. Days I studied, like read books or audiobooks, studied. Days I took action towards my business, right? Like I started tracking it. It's just one day, one day, one little action. Days I track my macros, things like that. And then I was like starting to get streaks, right? And I did not want to break those streaks, so I kept going with it. And that's the thing. He talks about tracking your habits, but also keeping, when you have like a streak going on, you're not going to want to break it. I think he didn't mention it, but I've heard this saying before. I've heard Jerry Seinfeld, right? I think someone asked him, how did you get good at, how did you become such a good comedian? He said, he wrote, there was a period of time that he just kept writing a joke every day, and he made it like an obligation, like he made it mandatory, like he has to write one new joke each day, and then he would put an X on the calendar every time he wrote a joke, and then he would see the X's pile up on the calendar, and he didn't want to end the streak, so he just kept having to put a joke, right? And that's the thing when it comes to tracking habits, right? The thing is, when you're tracking your habits, you start seeing what you're doing. You start seeing the progress, and then that's the thing. You're observing yourself. So when people are being observed, right? People tend to feel more accountable to to do those actions, right? They feel more accountable to do them, right? But when you apologies guys, I just lost my train of thought. All right, so when you're observing when you're observing your habits, right? When you see like the days that you're doing your things, you feel more accountable to keep going. You don't want to stop it, right? Because now you're observing yourself. And that's the thing. And there's definitely a lot of things that you need to do when it comes to, there's a lot of things in this book that he mentions, but I just thought these really like stood out with me, because everything starts with just like one little habit, right? Everyone has their habits that are either holding them back or they're pushing them forward. And this book really does a really good job in telling you what you need to do habit wise. How do you acquire good habits? How do you cultivate good habits? But also just, yeah, and also how to get rid of bad habits. I highly recommend it. It's a great book. It's a great read. Yeah, the audiobook was good too. But yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe. Take care.